A loony-looking dude announces that he has given up his temple and has journeyed all the way to look for a land that he knows only by name. He then arrives at Adakagahara in his pursuit and throws away his fan. In a deserted-looking town, Kuro rushes through the streets and arrives at the forest. He keeps getting chased by the men, and at one point his enemies shoot dozens of arrows at him. He dodges them and lands deep in the woods, where he comes across a number of people who have come to attack him. He takes out his katana and rushes through them, killing them one by one. He clashes his sword with one of them and suddenly feels a strong energy which brings him down to his knees. The enemy man is about to end him, but his companion arrives and deals with him. He ends the enemy man's life, who disappears on the spot, and the two of them discuss how their enemies are not the Kamakura men army this time. His companion reminds him that his older brother isn't the only one who wants the head of the Minamoto, but there are many pursuers after him. He tells his companion Benkei that Genji wrested the country from Haika clan, but now he has become a thorn for them, and even Benkei himself should kill him and flee. Benkei reminds him that he would never betray him since they have spent all their life together. They spot a light in the distance which Kuro thinks might indicate their pursuers, but Benkei points out that a lot of times people live in remote areas out of the mainlands to get a taste of that secluded life. They approach the light, which turns out to be a lodging of some kind, and they enter the area only to find it empty. Benkei calls loudly if there's someone inside, and a hot-looking babe appears at the door. The guys explain to her that they are monks from Kishu on a pilgrimage from Kumano Shrine, and that they got lost in the woods in the darkness, so they only need a place to rest for the night. Kuro feels dizzy and almost falls down, so the lady approaches him and feels his forehead to reveal that he has a fever. She thinks that he is in a really wretched state, and Benkei tells her that he is his teacher. The lady points out that Kuro has a specific elegance to him which makes it obvious that Benkei is serving him as a vessel, and she allows him to stay for the night. She puts forth a condition that they cannot peek inside her room, which lies deep in the house, and that they both can stay for as long as they want in her house if they follow her only rule. She reveals that her name is Kuromitsu, and the guys agree to stay for the night. The next morning, Benkei tells her that Kuro's condition has still not improved, due to which he is going to descend the mountain to buy some medicine, and he asks her to keep an eye on him in the meanwhile. Benkei heads outside and she starts to tend to him. Benkei comes across a statue without any head which freaks him out, and meanwhile Kuro wakes after some time to find Kuromitsu leaning over him. Benkei then comes across a field of wild red flowers which freaks him out even more, and Kuro tells Kuromitsu that they will leave since they only agreed to stay for one day. She asks him to stay for as long as he desires and then kisses his lips. Later, she tends him some more and they go out in the mountains. He comments that the place seems weird to her and that the time flow also seems twisted. Kuromitsu comes close to him and he grabs her boldly, as any man would do. They start out, but he gets too impatient and then backs away. She tells him that they shouldn't be together even if they are attracted to one another, because they are fated to live apart. Later at night, he senses a presence of something and he wonders whether Benkei has returned, but Benkei would have come directly to him. He realizes that there is a presence inside the house and he starts to move towards it slowly. He walks through many hallways and comes to face a door. He takes a peek inside and instantly recalls Kuromitsu's advice that he should never take a peek inside her room. Kuromitsu licks the blood of a man who is tied upside down, and she notices Kuro staring at her. He seems awfully shocked, and she tells him that she knew the day would come and that she even longed deep in her heart for the day to come where he would witness her doing such atrocious things. He tells her that he won't tell anyone about what he saw, and just then an ugly-looking dude appears behind her. He cuts off her hand and stabs her in the chest. Another man appears behind Kuro and slashes his back. Then a bunch of men proceed to light the house on fire and they surround Kuromitsu to end her life. Kuro gets a boost of power and he cuts off the attacker's hands with his sword. He attacks them and manages to overpower them single-handedly. Somebody shoots an arrow at him from the dark and a masked man lunges at him. He stabs his torso and Kuro collapses on the floor with blood seeping out of him. Kuromitsu attacks him from behind and picks his puny body up with one hand. Outside the house, guy and Benkei discuss that the woman living in the house is immortal and that the men have been looking for her for a long time because they want to discover the secret behind her immortal life. Later, Kuromitsu brings Kuro to a tree and he notices that her arm has returned even though it was previously cut off. She reveals that her body is really wretched, and he then tells her to flee the place after abandoning him in the forest because he cannot survive his wounds. She then asks him whether he would like to accompany her to the end of time. In a newly established Tokyo, a samurai thief takes on some people in the dark and he kills all of them. He taunts them about Edo being called Tokyo now, and he thinks that the new rules have made samurais thieves. He then steals the killed men pouches, and as he is about to leave, he comes across two passersby who witness what he is doing. He cannot let them go, so he lunges at them and kills both of them as well. Some more people start to come when they hear all the ruckus and realize that he cannot take on all of them, so he makes a run for it. He runs into the forest and comes across a house in the middle of nowhere, so he enters the house and sees some food cooking on the stove. Kuromitsu appears and asks him who he is, so he puts the sword towards her and asks her to feed him. She coolly agrees and starts to pour food into a bowl for him while he thinks that she is a strange woman since she didn't care much about his sword or threats. He starts to eat food as he thinks that he will kill her once morning arrives and steal all her valuables. Kuromitsu herself tells him that he can stay for the night, but she has one condition for him, which is that he cannot look inside her room. He suddenly starts to feel dizzy and soon he passes out. When he wakes up, it is dark everywhere and he starts to roam through the house to look for her. He comes across her room and he peeks inside only to discover that she is sharpening her sword. He then sees a live human head placed on a shelf and she tells the head that he himself was the one who decapitated him. She hugs the head and asks him whether he would like to take his revenge, especially considering since his culprit entered the house by his own will. She suddenly turns towards the man with red flashing eyes and lunges at him, so he storms off in fear. Kuro wakes up in a strange place and a masked man tells him that his name is Kuro, but he believes that his own name is Benkei for some reason. The masked man brings him down and makes him look at his own reflection, which stares back at Kuro's face. The man asks him why he is attracted to the siren who drains the blood of corpses, and Kuro declares that whenever he looks at Kuromitsu, energy rushes into him and he feels like he can do anything for her sake. The man asks him again what his name is, so he declares this time that it is actually Kuro. The man calls him wrong and he gets thrown back in the water again. Kuro then wakes up in a strange dark place where a guy welcomes him and reveals that they are the overlords. Kuro wakes up in the main forest where Kuromitsu is steadily drinking his blood, and he wonders how he can feel such a pleasure even when his body is being drained of blood. Some time ago, Kuromitsu asks him whether he wants to go to the end of time with him where she can travel with him. She reveals that the same power was bestowed on her a long time ago as well and that she almost forgot about it. She asks him to pierce her neck with his teeth so that he can drink her blood, and he realizes that he will become immortal once he drinks her blood. He then pierces her neck and keeps drinking that good juice till he is sick of it. Afterwards he asks her whether she is in pain and she assures him that she is alright, so he asks her why she is crying like a wuss. She comments that she might have dragged him to a dangerous path and he assures her that he won't regret the transformation. Suddenly, he feels a deep throb in his body and just then some enemies start to approach them. He buckles down as massive pain courses through his body and she tells him to bear the pain since it's a part of the transformation. The enemy arrives and throws Kuro away. He grabs Kuromitsu and stabs her, after which he starts yapping about how she must feel unbearable pain even though she is immortal. Kuro slowly gets up while the ugly man whines about how he has waited all this time to get her immortality. He removes his mask to reveal an ugly rotten face and he pulls the sword down to her torso so that she feels even more pain. Kuro slowly approaches them and the old man cannot believe that he can still be alive after suffering such mortal injuries. He trips on his feet and falls down, but he gets up again and this time he sees that Kuromitsu is being held in the air as a sword is stabbing. He feels a throb in his body again and he lunges at the enemies without thinking. He hits one of them and goes through them one by one as if they are pieces of cake. He hits one of them in the head and slices the body of another one, which ends his life. After he is done with them, he walks over to Kuromitsu and she tells him that he should not move for now because both their bloods have not merged sufficiently. He tells her that he feels a lot of power and that it's probably because of her blood which is coursing through his veins. The old man overhears his comment, which makes him realize that he can get immortality if he drinks Kuromitsu's blood, so he rushes towards her to attack her. Suddenly Benkei appears out of nowhere and slices away his neck. The old ugly man dies and Benkei tells Kuro that he had gone to Iwaizumi but did not know that such an attack would take place. He tells the both of them that they should move along since their pursuers might be close, and Kuromitsu suggests that they should take a route down the mountain that can hide them till the daybreak. She notices a strange sign on Benkei's hand and suddenly Benkei raises his sword over Kuro. He hackles Kuro's neck and Kuro wonders why Benkei would ever betray him and whether he would forever be separated from Kuromitsu. After some time he wakes up and doesn't seem to remember what went down. He wonders why he was in such a deep slumber and he then walks forward only to come across a wrecked city. In the wrecked city, a bunch of people take shelter in the abandoned buildings. One of them hears a ruckus and he heads outside to see what is going on. Suddenly the Red Imperial Army soldiers surround the hideout and start to shoot at the people inside. They put everyone down and barge over the dead bodies of the people. An old man manages to survive and he sees the body of a young woman hanging from the roof, but then a soldier attacks her as well. Kuro walks through the forest to look for Kuromitsu and he sees her in the fog, but when he moves towards her, she disappears. He makes his way forward and arrives at the end where the forest ends and the new wrecked city begins. An escort named Rai takes on a client, and rather than clapping his ugly cheeks, she asks him to tell her more about the Red Imperial Army and how they are killing people these days. He reveals that he hasn't personally seen anything happen, and then reveals that lately a lot of people have been prowling in the city to look for vampires. She bids him goodbye soon enough and then meets up with her friend Kurozuka. They discuss how she sells herself just to get some tea on the latest matters, and she asks him whether he managed to find anyone who is good for fighting. He reveals that he is still searching, and they discuss how they have made a bet that she has to sleep with him if he fails to find any good fighters. Later, Kurozuka is roaming through the town, and at the same time Kuro also walks through the streets. Kuro realizes that the time has changed completely since he cannot recognize the people or the area. He asks someone which country he is in, but he doesn't get any proper answer, so he climbs on top of a lamp post to look around. People gather around him, and Kurozuka also spots him, so Kuro jumps down and asks Kurozuka where he is currently. Kurozuka reveals that they are currently in Osaka, and Kuro walks away from the crowd. Kurozuka follows him, and he also notices his sword, which seems pretty dangerous to him. He tries asking him where he is from and whether he is looking for someone, and just then a kid takes away Kuro's sword. Kurozuka tells him that he should forget about his sword, but Kuro doesn't listen to him and runs after the kid. Kurozuka then asks an old man whether any trade is happening these days, and the old man informs him that an auction is going to take place that day and the next day soon in Ashikari. Kurozuka thanks him and then rushes to the auction site, while Kuro also trails the kid down to get his sword back. Kurozuka then spots Kuro approach the tradesman at the auction site and forcibly try to get his sword back. He takes it back and things get heated back, but Kurozuka steps between them just in time. He tells the men that he wants to buy the sword off of them, but the shopkeepers who already know him just end up giving it to him for free. They both walk away and Kuro apologizes to him, but Kurozuka just tells him that he doesn't have to apologize since the sword is technically his now. He asks him to follow him and then takes him to a shop where they both drink together. Kuro doesn't reveal much about himself. Instead, he asks Kurozuka about a painting on the wall which depicts a disaster. Kurozuka explains that the painting was done by his boss, which depicts the great disaster in which the stars fell on Earth for 7 days straight. Kuro doesn't know what he is talking about, so Kurozuka explains that 24 years ago an asteroid was heading directly towards Earth, so the countries sent all their nukes towards it to destroy it. The nukes failed, and a lot of countries also nuked one another, due to which the world powers fell and only 1/7 of the Earth population managed to survive. After the ordeal, a nuclear winter started which lasted for 2.5 years, and Kuro has a vision in which Kuramitsu starts to tell him that the Japanese population shrunk a lot due to the great disaster. During the time, television and radio transmissions had ceased, due to which nobody knew what kind of massive damage took place around the world. Kuramitsu turns around and just then somebody shoots her, which makes her fall down. A lot of soldiers start shooting wildly, and Kuro wakes up screaming in the bar like some crazy lunatic. A helicopter hovers over the Osaka town and it drops a blue sack, which drops down an ugly-looking blue monster. The monster crushes the people and starts to wreak havoc as it kills people left and right. The people start to run in fear, but the Red Imperial Army soldiers stop them from escaping and even gun them down. Some of them track people down in their homes and gun them down. The monster continues moving through the town and killing people over and over again. Kai calls Kurozuka and informs him about the massacre that is taking place. She reveals that the Red Emperor is behind the attack and that they are hunting people down, due to which she is heading to the main site to check the attack out. She tells him to take the weapons to the bar, but just then the chopper appears above Rai and starts to shoot at her. She tries dodging the attack, but her bike skids and she topples down. Kurozuka heads back inside the bar and tells everyone to shut the bar and to hide behind the painting as the Red Army is attacking. They all panic and start to hide the weapons just as the helicopter approaches the bar. The soldiers approach the bar and Rai calls Kurozuka to inform him that 6 soldiers are approaching the bar. She tells him the details while the people inside the bar hide everything, and finally Kurozuka pushes Kuro behind the painting as well. The light gets shut, and after a moment the Imperial Army soldiers enter the bar with caution. They scout the whole area and don't find any person. They get near the painting as well, and Kuro notices a similar mark on the soldier's suit which Benkei also had. The soldiers don't find the painting suspicious and they are about to leave when suddenly Kuro emerges in their middle and starts butchering them. They shoot at him, but he smoothly moves around them and takes them down one by one. He kills all of them, and Kurozuka then takes the last of them, who was about to shoot at Kuro from a distance. Kurozuka comments that he has got one hell of a muscle, and suddenly the Imperial Army commander Arashiyama appears. He attacks Kuro with his bare hands and takes him down easily. Kuro collapses on the floor and Arashiyama tells him that they will meet him if he manages to return back to life. He leaves the bar and Kuro notices a fallen soldier's body. He drags himself to his body, and then Kurozuka watches as he sinks his teeth into the dead soldier's neck and starts to drink his blood. Kuro wakes up bandaged like a burrito and he notices Kuromitsu's presence by his bedside. He tells her that he was dreaming and that he keeps dreaming about the same thing over and over again, but when he wakes up, he doesn't know the meaning of the dream. She tells him that when his blood has properly merged with her, she will tell him about the true nature of their species and that he will surely consider her abnormal if she tells him everything at this moment. He feels his wound and comments that it feels unnatural to him, so she climbs on top of him and tells him that they are bound together by an unbreakable bond which is greater than any bond that exists between a man and a woman. She kisses him and just then an air raid siren starts to blow all over the town. She tells him that Japan is at a war with America and she also overhears a man approaching their building. She informs him that their pursuers are approaching them and she then readies him for an escape. She gives him a sword and they both watch as a person knocks on their door. The person rattles the door open and Kuromitsu pushes Kuro aside as someone shoots down the door. Kuromitsu also falls on the floor and the man welcomes Kuromitsu back into Tokyo. He approaches her slowly but she gets up and shoots at him. He manages to bend his fat body to avoid being shot and Kuro attacks him from behind with his sword. The man blocks Kuro's attacks and grabs Kuro with his legs and sends him flying through the house. He then lunges at him and starts shooting at him, so Kuro runs away from him to dodge the bullets. He still gets shot in his arms, but rather than panicking, time slows down for him as he swiftly moves between the bullets and even picks one of the bullets up to casually click it away. He then coolly picks up his sword and rushes at the fatso guy, after which he slices him down. Kuromitsu rushes to his side and they hear more people coming towards them, so she pushes him along as they both make their escape. He starts to think that the same scene has occurred before and that they both have definitely made their escape in the same fashion. He even thinks that the same scene has happened countless times in the last few centuries and the war bombs start to drop on their city from above. Kuro wonders why he doesn't remember any of the previous instances, and soon they both arrive at a spot where Kuro sees that the whole city is wrecked beyond measure. She thinks that the scene looks really wonderful since humans are no longer polluting the atmosphere and they won't be able to extinct any more animals. Just then someone shoots at her and she falls down. He turns towards the attackers in fury, but they shoot at him and he falls down as well. Their enemies approach them and they surround Kuromitsu. They pick her up and take her away while he watches them go till he falls unconscious. Kuro wakes up and Rai introduces herself to him. She tells him that she had passed out, due to which she checked him up and then makes him recall how he killed all the Red Imperial soldiers, due to which they will be coming back to take their revenge. She asks him to take some responsibility by becoming one of the Haniwa, but he just ignores her and gets up to leave. She warns him that the door handle has electricity running through it and then urges him to sit down with her instead. He goes along with whatever she is saying and she makes him sit as she goes and brings him tea. She asks him whether he is looking for something and he replies that it has been a long time since he has lived with someone. She notices that he isn't drinking his tea, so she asks him whether he prefers drinking blood. She then comments that she is already aware of how he wasn't behaving like a human at the bar and calls him a monster. He gets up to leave and she asks him whether he is going to look for Kuromitsu now. He asks her what she knows about Kuromitsu and she tells him that they can give him information about Kuromitsu if he is willing to join the Haniwa. He rejects her offer and leaves by opening the door, which she had warned contained electricity in it. She still tells him that he can come to a certain butcher's shop if he ever changes his mind and that he will surely find what he is looking for. Afterwards, Rai reports everything to her colleagues, who find it hard to believe that Kuro is such a big shot muscle head, and one of her colleagues named Azana asks her to bring Kuro to him if he comes to them. Soon Kuro finds the butcher shop which Rai told him about and he meets up with the butcher. He tells the butcher that he is looking for the snake in hibernation, which makes the butcher realize that he is the Kuro whom Haniwa is looking to recruit. The butcher shows him down a secret path through his back door and Kuro walks down to meet with Rai. She leads the way and they both come across another Haniwa member, Kyuan, who comments that Rai has brought in a dirty rat this time. He allows him to enter the room to meet up with Azana, but he notices Kuro's sword, so he approaches him to take it. Kuro jumps back and Rai steps between the both of them to dispel the tension. She tells Kyuan that Azana has already allowed Kuro to keep his sword, so he shouldn't disobey him. Kuro then enters the room and meets up with Azana, who is in charge of the place. Kuro feels really cold and Azana comments that the place is kept cold to safeguard Mitsu, which is a treasure that can never be found. He then tells Kuro that he wants him to slay demons, and he explains that the Red Imperial Army is obsessed with pursuing the secret to eternal life, due to which they kidnap people to pursue their goal and to conduct experiments. He then throws him an offer that the Haniwa will help him find Kuromitsu if he can fight beside them. Later, he leads him to a basement which Azana hasn't even shown to his close colleagues like Rai and Karuta, and Kuro sees a bloody rock in the basement. He instantly realizes that the rock is the same rock on which Kuromitsu fell when they were both running away together, and he starts to scream out like a child. He keeps screaming his face off and Azana tells him that Kuromitsu was taken from the same place 20 years ago. He explains that the Red Imperial Army meant to use her blood to create an army of fiends due to which their ultimate goal is to recover her from them, and he asks him to join the Haniwa again. Kuro calls him a liar as he declares that the Red Imperial Army was not the one who took Kuromitsu away from him, but in fact he remembers that Azana himself was the one who took her away so many years ago. Izana explains that they took Kuromitsu away because they didn't want her blood to fall into the wrong hands, and Kuro thinks he is definitely lying, so he grabs his sword to combat him. Kuon appears behind him and tells him to lower his sword or else he will end his life. Kuro attacks him and things heat up, but Izana steps between them to stop them. He tells Kuro that he has to meet with Sanoa if he wants to meet with Kuromitsu again, and Kuro reluctantly lowers his guard. Kuruda appears and Izana tells him to take Kuro to meet with Sanoa. In the Red Imperial Army office, a mad scientist does an experiment as he moves a sick-looking man into a machine and injects him with blood. The man writhes in pain and the machine declares that his blood is unfit, so the man disposes of the experiment. He tells Arashiyama that the world casts off anything that is worthless, and he also proceeds to experiment with men one after another as he injects them with blood and then disposes of them. He declares that a new species will soon emerge which will be superior to humans, and meanwhile the men continue to get discarded one after another. He keeps up his mad experiment and countless men get killed in the process. After a while he comments that they are running out of guinea pigs and that he keeps injecting men with Kuromitsu's blood, but only a few of them turn out to be successful and bear powers just like Arashiyama. He thinks that he needs more guinea pigs or he needs more of Kuromitsu's blood, so he reminds Arashiyama that it is his job to bring both of these things to him, otherwise he is also useless to him. He warns him that he will discard him too and then orders him to leave. Afterwards Arashiyama meets with his colleagues and one of them, looking like an ugly dud named Kurumitsu, tries to test his patience. Another woman named Kagetsu stops Kurumitsu by telling him to restrain himself, and they both taunt Arashiyama for losing his entire platoon. They call him a lizard who cannot even protect his platoon. Later another Red Imperial Army member, Hasegawa, orders his army to destroy the Haniwa and to retrieve the Mitsu. He thinks that he has finally found Kuromitsu, and an old man declares that he will finally have Kuromitsu since he has lost her so many times over the last 1,000 years. Kuromitsu and Kuro walk together to a flower field where he points out that she never gets tired of the scenery. They both kiss and watch the flowers till the sun sets and the field starts to become white. The petals start to fly in the air and Kuro notices that Kuromitsu is crying, so he asks her the reason behind crying. She doesn't give him any response, so he picks up a flower for her and she asks him whether he knows the name of the flower. He answers that it is dead nettle, but she tells him that she has a special separate name for the flower. Kuro wakes up in the Haniwa hideout and Rai tells him to quickly get ready since they are getting late. They both head out together and she informs him that the rebel leader Sanoa will meet him and that she has to personally verify something from him. They both arrive outside where Kuruda tells him that he will be in charge of his sword. He hands over his sword and he then gets blindfolded as Kuruda takes him to meet Sanoa in a van. They arrive at a place where Kuruda says some code words to the guard, who then lets them in. Kuruda then leads Kuro inside and warns him not to make any move or else he will have to shoot at him. He leads him inside a room and then leaves him alone. Kuro takes off his blindfold and comes across a statue which he finds unusual. Rai asks Izana why they are letting Kuro meet their leader so early in the game, and Izana explains that Sanoa can scrutinize the content of any man's heart while his own role is to protect Mitsu for now. Rai wonders what Mitsu is, and meanwhile the Mitsu is shown with a red orb at its center that seems to contain blood. Kuro watches as the horse in the statue takes on life and starts to turn towards him. His head is cut, due to which blood rushes out from its neck and it then falls on the floor, after which it starts to writhe around in pain. Kuro then snaps out of the painful vision and Kuruda opens the door to announce that they will now be going to meet Sanoa. He brings a bunch of keys with him and then uses one of them to open a door. He then clicks some bricks in the wall which move inside and another door clicks open. Kuro enters inside the huge place while Kuruda leaves him alone and heads back. Kuro then sees a wide field of flowers and Kuromitsu in the center holding a flower. He asks her what is holding her to this place and she tells him to move carefully since there are many people with bloodlust who want to draw them both in. She throws away the flower and observes that Kuro is still unaware of the true nature of his species, so she tells him that the other people fear them because they drink blood to survive. Kuro starts to move closer to her, but she warns him to stay away since her actual physical form is not present with him and that they will meet each other soon enough. She turns around and reminds him not to forget all the words that they have exchanged in their past lives. She disappears as a wind of flowers blows towards Kuro and he tries to move towards her but stops when he steps on one of the flowers. The flower scenery disappears and someone shoots at him from the dark, so he avoids the bullet and makes a run for it. The person keeps shooting at him and Kuro avoids all the bullets. Kuon then comes face to face with Kuro, but just then Sanoa calls out and asks Kuon to stop treating her guest so roughly. She tells Kuro to forgive Kuon, who keeps having mood swings, and Kuruda reveals that they had released a hallucinogen in the room which caused him to hallucinate Kuromitsu. Sanoa shows him the dead nettle flower and asks him whether he remembers the name he and Kuromitsu gave to the flower, so he tells her that the flower's name is the luminous light phosphorescence and that both he and Kuromitsu used to gaze at the flower, wishing that the moment would last forever. Sanoa tells him that she will gladly take him to the place where Kuromitsu is resting and that he can meet her again. Suddenly one of Sanoa's men comes to tell her that the Red Imperial Army had attacked their hideout. The army soldiers storm their way inside and a blue monster also drops in front of Kuro. Kuruda throws Kuro his sword, who then prepares to fight the Red Army. Kuro rushes at the army soldiers and takes care of them one by one. He slices the enemies and tears away their limbs coolly. Sanoa calls Izana to let him know that they will soon be coming to him once Kuro has dealt with all the soldiers. Izana in response tells her that there is no need for her to come since everything is under control, and he promises to report back once they have taken care of a little issue. She comments that the army's target must be the Mitsu, and Izana also thinks the same, so he tells Sanoa that he will have to use the Mitsu if it comes down to it. She protests that they should never use the Mitsu, and Izana turns back towards the fighting. Kuro continues to take the men down with his sword while Kuon helps him by putting down the shooters. Kuruda rushes outside and discovers that all the soldiers have been taken down. Sanoa tells him that they should hurry to Izana's site because she has a foreboding feeling about the attack. The Haniwa members rush ahead to deal with enemies at their other hideout while Arashiyama lays down his trap. He picks one of them with his powers and throws him down after electrocuting him. He then tangles all of them in his wires and his soldiers shoot at them till the wires get covered with blood. The other Haniwa members group together to take the army soldiers down, but suddenly a monster jumps in the midst of one of the groups and smashes the guys. Some of them group together to shoot him down, but the bullets don't have any effect on him and he starts to chase them down. One of the men reports to the others that a monster is chasing them down, and the monster then grabs two of them. He turns them into skewered kebabs, and Rai gets a report that they are all being slaughtered. Izana rushes ahead to fight and he takes down a bunch of Red Army soldiers all by himself. Sanoa reports Rai that she is heading towards them through an underground passage, and Rai reports back that their death toll is rising a lot. Sanoa orders her to tell the soldiers to retreat to the central portion and to evacuate the north and south side. Even though they will be giving up most of the resources, the Haniwa members retreat to the central part, and Rai then seals the doors to prevent any further casualties. Izana then asks Rai why she would seal the doors, and he pushes her aside as he proceeds to open the doors. Suddenly Arashiyama appears with his army of soldiers and monsters and begins his slaughter party, while the Haniwa members wonder why Izana would do such a psychotic thing. Izana thinks that they need to face the enemy today once and for all and to stop being such losers. He kicks Rai out from the main room which contains the Mitsu, and she tries to force her way in while Izana turns on the switch for the Mitsu. The machine clicks open to reveal a red orb which Izana stares creepily at. Rai calls Sanoa and informs her that Izana is acting loony as he is luring the enemy inside and probably using the Mitsu. Sanoa is in the vicinity of the central area and she tells Rai to show her the fastest route to get to her. Meanwhile she tells Kuro that Mitsu is actually Kuromitsu's blood sample that Izana is now seeking out. At the same time, Izana takes out some of Kuromitsu's blood from the orb and injects himself with it. He keeps hearing voices which remind him that the Haniwa's purpose has been to prevent the Red Imperial Army from misusing the same blood, but now he is the one who is falling trapped to the Kuromitsu's blood. He ignores everything and waits for the blood to take effect. Arashiyama feels the presence of the people underground and he feels Kuro's presence as well, which excites him. A monster makes his way to Sanoa's group and it thumps its chest as it blocks their path. The Red Imperial Army soldiers close in on the main site which contains the Mitsu, and Rai manages to avoid being detected. The soldiers surround the main site and shoot the gate down. They then rush inside and surround Izana, who welcomes them. Arashiyama asks him whether he has used the Mitsu, and just then Izana's body starts to transform into a monster. Arashiyama calls him stupid because the Mitsu's powers aren't accessible to everyone, while Izana's body undergoes a grotesque transformation as his limbs turn on themselves. He completely morphs into an ugly flesh which then bursts to spill blood everywhere. Rai watches all of this happen and she rushes to hide inside a locker. Arashiyama finds her soon enough with the help of his powers and she tries to outrun him, but he corners her. Kuro and his company appear and Kuon shoots at Arashiyama, but he easily blocks the bullet. Arashiyama realizes that his big ugly monster has been taken down by Kuro and he attacks him with his powers which allow him to manipulate long wires at will. The floor collapses and they both fall down where the battle continues. Arashiyama attacks him with his tentacles but Kuro dodges his attacks and lunges back at him. He hits him with his sword and Arashiyama blocks his attack with his bare arm. They both continue to fight one another while the rest of the group discovers Azana's melted body beside the Mitsu. Arashiyama blocks another one of Kuro's attacks with his arm and uses the same arm to send him flying. He then attacks him with his arm while he uses the other hand to manipulate his tentacles to attack him. Kuro dodges all of his attacks and Kuon joins him to take Arashiyama down. Arashiyama continues attacking him non-stop, so Kuon jumps to a side and tries to take him down by shooting at him from a side. His bullet hits a tank instead, which causes an explosion, and the explosion causes Arashiyama's clothes to fly away, revealing an ugly-looking, disgusting alien look-alike. Arashiyama unleashes his maximum powers as his tentacles attack Kuro and Kuro gets tangled up in them. He feels a buildup of an enormous power and he unleashes it by lunging at Arashiyama. He slices his neck away and Arashiyama's ugly neck falls down. Afterwards, Kurozuka comments that they no longer have to fear that Mitsu will ever be misused, and he announces that Haniwa have disbanded. Sanoa tells them that they should head to Suruga now to meet Kuromitsu and that they will find all of their answers there. The next day, the group starts heading towards Surahai on a bus with Kurozuka being the ultimate bus driver, driving through a post-apocalyptic world, and Kuro recalls how Sanoa told him that need to go to a village called Kagura in Suruga City, which is being guarded by one of the Haniwa members, named Tana. Kurozuka further revealed that this Tanba guy is the same person who drew the painting they saw in Sakafune and that it is his first time meeting him too. Sanoa revealed that Kuromitsu retreated to Kagura 20 years ago to escape the never-ending battles, and Kuro asked Kuon and Rai if they had ever met Kuromitsu themselves. They revealed that they have only heard about her, and Sanoa never revealed her real location to anyone before. Kuro asks Sanoa what kind of person Kuromitsu was, but she comments that Kuro already knows her very well enough. He explains that he feels like he does not know who Kuromitsu really is, and she tells him not to worry because he already knows the important stuff. She tells him to stop overthinking about things and to focus on the fact that they both want to reunite with each other. The group finally arrives in front of some mountains, and Sanoa says that they will have to walk the rest of the way to Kagura village, which is in those mountains. Kurozuka questions if Kuromitsu really is somewhere in the mountains in front of them, so Sanoa explains that they wanted to conceal her from the enemy, which is why Kagura village was the best place to hide her because it is a village where the people live in total isolation. He points out that the Kagura village must be a mole, and he explains that people created underground villages called moles to avoid the effects of the Great Disaster. The group starts walking through the densely forested mountains, and Kuro suddenly senses that something is approaching him, so he instinctively swings the sword, but it turns out to be nothing. He wonders if he was really mistaken, and he starts getting flashbacks in which he and Kuromitsu are fighting against the Red Army soldiers, but his head gets cut off. Sanoa calls his name, which brings him back to reality, and they cross a waterfall, deeper into the mountains. They finally arrive outside a door on the mountainside, and Sanoa explains that Kagura is behind that door. Kuon steps forward to open the door, but Kuro stops him and he warns them that he is sensing an ominous presence behind that door. With no other option left, they decide to cautiously head inside, and a staircase takes them further underground. They find everything unusually quiet, and Rai points out that not a single person came out to greet them. They head further inside and find loads of corpses on the ground. They rush ahead to Kuromitsu's room only to find it empty, and Kuon finds a survivor. Sanoa recognizes the survivor as Tanba, but he does not respond to them and only points towards the wall. They look at the wall and realize that he was pointing toward the ivy plants. They notice that all the people were killed by the ivy plants, and Sanoa says that the Red Army committed this massacre. Tanba goes crazy as he starts painting on the wall, while she explains that she had heard rumors about a fiend that could control ivy plants and that Kuromitsu has most likely been kidnapped by the Red Army. They all split up to search for more survivors, and Kuro suddenly gets a flashback of a person wearing a monster mask, which causes him to lose breath. Kuon mocks him for getting exhausted so easily and advises him not to overwork himself. He throws a flask to Kuro, and Kuro realizes that it is filled with human blood. Kuon tells him that he should take care of his body from time to time because it also needs something to continue working, and reminds him to stay cautious because the enemy might still be nearby. Kuro drinks the flask of blood and he sits down like he is going through a midlife crisis. Meanwhile, Sanoa cries at the sight of her fallen comrades and explains the abilities they had one by one to Rai, who asks if they all had superpowers. Sanoa explains that they all underwent mutation after the Great Disaster, which gave them different abilities, and she reveals that Kagura village is her homeland. Kuro arrives back at the place where Tanba was, and he notices a figure on the wall, so he uses the light to get a clear look. He realizes that it is a painting of Kuromitsu and his head starts hurting again. He starts getting flashbacks in which he tells Kuramitsu about how they will reach Kagura soon, but she explains that it is also a trap because the enemies are already waiting for them there. The two jump off a cliff and encounter several enemies, so they start cutting them down one by one. After killing all the enemies, he tells her about how his body is getting heavier, and she explains that he is not perfect yet because his body is unable to keep up with his healing abilities. She suddenly stabs him from the back and his head gets separated from his body after that. The flashback finally ends and he wonders who Kuramitsu really is, so he tries to ask Tanba, but he starts acting weird. Ivy plants suddenly come out of him and fill the whole cave, so Kuro starts running away. The plants chase after him, but Kuon shoots the plants, which give them some space to run, and they also encounter Karuta, who is also running away from the plants. At the same time, Sanoa and Rai get surrounded and Sanoa gets caught by the plants, but Kuro manages to cut the plants at the last second. Rai catches her as she falls down. The plants start chasing them, so they all rush towards the door where they came from, but plants start catching up. They manage to escape the cave at the last second, but they end up encountering Kagetsu and Kurumitsu outside, who were waiting for them to come out. Kuro walks through the town and comes across an ugly-looking man who begs him to give him a dime. Kuro just ignores him because he is a Sigma hotshot, so the beggar tells him that he lost his limbs on birth and not due to war or any calamity. He keeps following Kuro on his small wagon as he tells him that he can spill some tea for him if he gives some money. Kuro gives him a coin and the man tells him that he is being targeted by someone who is coming after him. He explains that someone is actually tailing him right now as well, and that one of the guys has a similar body to his since someone has screwed his body. He explains that the screwed up body guy has a thick shell on his back and that he should better avoid him if he ever faces him. He then goes on to reveal that the second person tailing him is a chick who is a looker, and he warns him not to get seduced by the babe or else she will take him down. The beggar's advice turns out to be good, and the beggar in return shows Kuro a bag in his vehicle. He asks him to throw it away wherever it's convenient for him, and when Kuro bends down to pick it up, he notices that the bag smells of crap. Kuro asks him whether he is really asking him to dispose of his smelly crap, and the beggar notices that the crap has been pressed up in the bag, due to which it shouldn't smell, but still Kuro managed to sniff it out. He explains to Kuro that he has an invalid body, but he still craps in the plastic bags, and that he spends all his money on food and the plastic bags, but lately he has been struggling to buy the plastic bags. He starts whining that he would crap his own pants without the plastic bags, due to which people will avoid his ugly butt, and that he can even try washing his butt in the river, but he is afraid of getting in and out of the river, due to which he avoids such a route. He keeps uselessly explaining to him that the river is full of stones, due to which he avoids crapping in the water, and Kuro concludes that his information was pretty useful to him, so he will definitely help him out. He picks up the squishy bag and the beggar informs him casually that the bag contains 3 days worth of crap. Kuro picks up the juicy stuff and slowly carries it towards the water. He thinks that there is definitely something wrong with the bag, and something even leaks from the bag. He finally becomes too paranoid, due to which he throws the bag into the water from a distance and a drop falls on him, but he jumps away in Bruce Lee style to avoid being hit by the droplet. The beggar thanks him for helping him out and asks him whether he can repay his gratitude in some other way. He notices that he seems to be searching for something and asks him whether he wants to know anything from him, so Kuro asks him where the butcher shop with the snake emblem is. The old man becomes serious all of a sudden as he asks him whether he really wants to know about the butcher shop, and even warns him that he may not ever return after going to the butcher shop. He cautions him that his loved ones will end up dying, and Kuro feels dizzy as the world spins around him. Somebody calls him from a distance and he wakes up with Kurumitsu beside him. The voice asks him what he is doing, so Kuro tells him that he is disposing of crap. Kurumitsu reveals that he was actually disposing of his crap, and he continues to yap endlessly about all kinds of crap. Kuon shoots at him and Kuro snaps out his vision, after which Kuon tells him that they need to hurry up as Sanoa must be in trouble. Meanwhile, Kagetsu ties up Sanoa's dead body in the air and Kuro rushes through the forest towards her. He then comes across Sanoa's body, and Kagetsu then asks him whether he wants her to reenact the scene of how Sanoa died. He agrees, and she starts to pathetically play out a dialogue in which Sanoa asks her where Kurumitsu is, and she urges her to tell Kurumitsu's location since all the residents of the village Kagura respect Kurumitsu a lot. Sanoa claimed that Kurumitsu was like a guardian angel for all of them, and they both started to fight as Kagetsu let out a bunch of vines by using her special powers. Sanoa then started to use her own powers as well, which allowed her to raise flower petals in the air, and she once again asked Kagetsu to tell her about Kurumitsu's location. Kagetsu pretended to suffocate, but at the same time, she lured her vines behind Sanoa and attacked her from behind. The vines pierced Sanoa's body, and Sanoa started ranting to her about how Kurumitsu told her that she was a sacred being. Kagetsu pierced her body with some more vines to shut her yapping mouth up, and in the present, Kuro attacks her when he hears all of this. She calls him ungrateful and attacks him with her vines. Sanoa falls down on the ground while Kuro dodges all of her attacks and she continues to throw her vines at him. She loses him in the woods and he then launches a surprise attack on her. Kurumisu thinks that everything in the world is an illusion, and meanwhile Rai and Kuruda face him with their guns pointed at each other. They suddenly hear a scream which snaps both of them out of their illusion and they lower their guns. Kuro's attack on Kagetsu works and he asks her what her name is. After she reveals her name, he is about to land his finishing blow on her when suddenly vines erupt from her body and envelop his sword and body. She dangles him in the air and just then Kuromitsu appears behind her. She grabs her by the neck and chokes her to death on the spot. She then approaches Sanoa and hugs her as she tells her that she will never forget the people of Sanoa. She tells her that she will definitely repay her kindness, and she then sees Kuro, who is staring dumbstruck at her. She tells him that they cannot reunite yet, even though she is glad to see that he has traveled so far and that everything will be revealed at the Red Castle. She then disappears and leaves Kuro by himself. Later, Kurumisu finds Kagetsu's body and he cannot believe that she is dead. Kuro tells his groupies that he is going to the Red Castle and Sanoa tells him that he needs to reach out for light. She passes away after yapping about how he can break the curse of time and life. Afterwards Kuruda devises a plan for them to break into the Red Castle, and they plan that the patrol trucks head into the Red Castle once a day, which gives them the perfect opportunity to sneak inside. Kuruda comments that it will be extremely difficult to launch an attack, but they all decide that they will do it. At the Red Imperial Army headquarters, the mad scientist Hasegawa discovers that one of the guards was killed and the prisoner keeps yapping nonsense in his cell. He tells his minion to fetch the camera recording to find out what is happening. Some time ago, the guard was keeping an eye on a prisoner who was actually Kurumisu, and Kurumisu kept yapping his mouth off to him. He kept asking the guard whether he was even alive, and the guard warned him that he would kill him if he did not shut up. Kurumisu asked him whether he was sure that he was alive, and he managed to convince the guard somehow to prove to him that he was alive by the power of yapping. The guard assured him that he was most definitely alive, and Kurumisu asked him to shoot himself to prove to him that he isn't dead yet. He kept asking him, which tripped the guard, and he ended his life by shooting himself just to prove that he was most definitely alive. Later, Hasegawa discovers what Kurumisu did, and it pleases him so much that he performs even more experiments on him. He soon develops his powers and keeps killing even his own comrades who cannot give proper answers to his riddles. One day he asks Kagetsu a lame question and she gives him a clever answer which impresses him. He calls her an impressive woman and they become besties soon afterwards as they pair up and do everything together. In the present, Hasegawa reminds him that Kagetsu is no longer with them because she has been killed by Kuro. He then asks him what he will do if he is in a field and Kuro were to sneak up behind him, so Kurumisu tells him that he will crush Kuro's soul into pieces to such an extent that he will never be reincarnated. Hasegawa orders him to deal with Kuro however he wants and to return with his head. In the meanwhile, Kuro and his group head to the Red Castle and Kuro notices a bike in the van, so he asks Rai about what it is. She tells him that it is a machine which they can ride with some practice, and they all arrive near the Red Castle. Kuruda thinks that they should have a hot pot to commemorate the achievement of being near their goal, so they stop near the castle for the night. Kuruda cooks food for the group and Kyuan refuses to eat it while Kuruda jokes around like a certified group joker. Rai wonders whether it is even the right time to fool around like this, and he reminds the group that the castle bridge is only lowered once a day, so they have a lot of time till they have to infiltrate inside the castle. Kuro drinks the hot pot soup and finds it yummy, which surprises Rai to no end, so she stops whining and has a taste of his cooking too. She finds it delicious as well, and soon they finish the hot pot together. Later they all discuss their plan and Kuruda tells the others the expected route for the incoming trucks. He and Kyuan start to joke about an anime they used to watch back in the day, and Kuro asks him about the territories of the group, so he starts to explain everything in detail. According to him, the Yamato group was an influential group before the Great Disaster which had businesses in every major industry from steel to construction, while the Red Army was controlling them from the shadows. Soon after the Great Disaster, when the governments fell down, they gained the opportunity to expand their control, and they firstly acquired control over the Kanto region. He reveals that Tokyo has always been under their control, and he wonders what will happen to their attack. Kuro declares that he will definitely infiltrate the enemy base to see Kuromitsu once again, and then everything will be revealed to him. Afterwards they all head towards the Red Castle and Kuruda smoothly drives the van near the enemy base. They pass a tunnel and suddenly when they cross it, a hover starts to stalk them. It begins shooting down at them, so Kuruda maneuvers the van to avoid being shot. Rai thinks that they knew somehow that Kuro was coming already, and soon another hover starts to follow them. It attacks their windshield and Rai tries shooting at them. Kuruda manages to get the van inside another tunnel and Kuro proposes to act as bait. He asks Rai to lend him her bike and he thinks that he will be alright since riding the bike must be like riding a horse. Rai lends him her bike and then puts an earphone in his ear. They all cross the tunnel and Kuro splits up from them as he suddenly becomes Bruce Lee who perfectly knows how to drive. The hovers separately follow both of them and Rai tells Kuro through the earpiece that they will meet up after the third bridge somehow. Kuro heads separate ways from them and he leads the hover into a tunnel once again where he stops the bike to confront the hover. He turns it back towards the hover and brings out the sword, after which he heads straight towards the hover. Kuroda drives the van over to a smooth road where he asks Kuro to take down the rover. At the same time, Kuro jumps over the hover and kills its rider, after which he jumps back on his bike. Kuro manages to shoot down the river and Kuro notices a figure emerging from the crashed hover's explosion. The figure turns out to be Kurumasu, who declares that he won't forgive Kuro and he then lunges at him. Kuro blocks his attack with his sword and then rushes away on his bike. Kurumasu uses his powers to follow him and he keeps attacking Kuro on his bike. Rai informs Kuro that they are meeting up soon, so Kuro thrusts the bike at Kurumasu and jumps on Kuruda's van to make his escape. The bike ends up exploding and Kuruda drives straight towards the Red Castle. He notices that he is injured but he doesn't inform anyone, instead he just tells them that the castle's drawbridge is going to lower soon. The drawbridge gets lowered at the Red Imperial Army Castle and the trucks start to arrive inside one by one. Kuruda drives his van through one of the checkposts and they send an alert to the HQ that there are some intruders. Kurumasu wildly chases after the van and Kuon tries to shoot him down but none of the bullets hit him. The army's defense mechanisms shoot at the van and Kuruda declares that he will definitely get everyone inside. The drawbridge starts to get raised again on HQ's orders and Kuruda hurries ahead, but just then Kurumasu jumps on the windshield in front of him. Rai shoots at him but he avoids the bullets and Kuruda speeds ahead even faster, which sends Kurumasu flying back through the van. Kuruda rushes up the drawbridge and after avoiding all the tanks, he drives the van over the drawbridge. The van flies over to the other side and crashes against the gate, breaking it open. Rai wakes up after a while and crawls outside to discover that Kuro is facing Kurumasu. Rai notices Kuruda under the van, so she rushes to his side while Kurumasu asks Kuro whether he is alive. Rai realizes that Kuruda has died due to his injuries, which makes her cry, and Kuro stabs Kurumasu, which kills him. Rai pulls herself together and they head out to complete their mission. They walk through a corridor when they notice Kuon standing at the end of the corridor and Kuro stops for a moment. He starts walking again but comments that the air is too still and the ground suddenly glows for a split second. A large speaker in the wall suddenly starts vibrating, which makes them lose all of their strength, and Kuro closes the door to the corridor before heading up on an elevator by himself. A holographic Hasegawa suddenly appears before the two and welcomes them to the Red Castle. He tells Kuro that it is their first time meeting, but he knows everything about Kuro, who is a 1,000-year-old outcast, and he reveals that he has been always waiting for Kuro to come to his facility. He says that he was worried that Arashiyama and Kagetsu would prevent Kuro from coming to him, and he reveals that he personally sent Kuon to them so he could bring Kuro to the Red Castle. He tells them to suffer a bit longer as a punishment, and he increases the vibration of the speaker even more, which gives them immense pain, so they both collapse. Kuro gets another flashback of how he and Kuramitsu were being chased by soldiers in the snow, and he cuts down the soldiers using a surprise attack, but he gets shot by another soldier who was hiding. He throws his sword and kills that soldier too, but he ends up collapsing. He wakes up after a while but does not see Kuramitsu nearby, so he heads out to look for her. He finds her dragging a corpse while holding its head using her mouth, so he asks her what she is doing. She gets shocked when she realizes that he saw her, and the flashback ends as Kuro wakes up on an experimental chair. He gets shocked when he sees the same scene from his flashback, playing on a video in front of him, which was recorded by one of the soldiers he had killed at that time. Hasegawa appears as the video ends and asks Kuro if he found the video interesting. Kuro asks him how he knows what just came in his dream, and Hasegawa gets confused about what dream Kuro is talking about. He explains that the video he just saw was not a dream and it is the only existing video of him and Kuramitsu together, which is from 20 years ago. Kuro asks him why they have such a video, so Hasegawa explains that there was not much for entertainment back then, so they decided to record and sell a manhunt, which became very popular with the people. He further explains that it became a trend between soldiers at that time to record everything every time they went out to kill other humans, and that's how they were able to coincidentally obtain video footage of him and Kuramitsu together. Hasegawa points out that Kuro has lost all of his previous memories because of his special physique, which allows him to always remain youthful. Hasegawa proclaims that he knows more about Kuro than Kuro knows about himself, and he shows him a picture before asking him if he recognizes the man in the photo. Kuro gets confused, so Hasegawa explains that the man in the photo is a Special Defense Forces soldier named Hiroaki who disappeared 20 years ago while chasing him and Kuramitsu, and he reveals that the Red Army keeps a record of the fingerprints of all of their soldiers. He explains that Hiroaki's and Kuro's fingerprints perfectly match now, even though the fingerprints they found of Kuro from the sword he threw previously were different. He points out that Hiroaki and Kuro were different people at that time, but now they have the same fingerprints, which mean that Kuro's current body is Hiroaki's. He reveals that Kuro's DNA still shows that his age is more than 1,000 years even though his body is young, and he asks Kuro about what kind of creature he actually is. He calls Kuro a monster but suddenly says that he is ugly and noble at the same time, and then his vocabulary suddenly increases, so he calls Kuro the supreme, disgusting yet beautiful monster. He explains that Kuro switches bodies almost every 100 years to continue living, and Kuro suddenly recalls how Kuramitsu was dragging a headless body. Hasegawa tells him that he loses all the memories he has accumulated every time he switches bodies, and he reveals that he was trembling when he first learned about Kuro's existence 20 years ago. He says that he cannot wait to try what will happen if he combines Kuro's unique blood with an equally superior body, and is very excited to see what kind of results such a body will bring because he might develop new abilities if the body is more suited for him. He reveals that he wants to create a superior life form that way, which is why he created Kuon using Kuro's blood. He reveals that Kuon is the 48th specimen and the first to achieve immortality, and outside, another Kuon lookalike appears. He goes to greet Kuon, but they end up pointing the guns at each other, and the lookalike remarks that Kuon has forgotten about him. Kuon reveals that he does have any memory related to him, so the lookalike reveals that Kuon was actually a part of him 5 years ago, and all the abilities that Kuon has were actually inherited from him. He tells Kuon that he should be thankful to them for giving him such a good body because he was just a single cell 5 years ago. He congratulates Kuon for completing his mission by bringing Kuro to them, but he suddenly shoots Kuon multiple times. Kuon falls down on his knees, and the lookalike says that it pains him to see Kuon like this because he feels like he is just killing himself. Kuon starts getting a flashback about how he first opened his eyes in a tank and Kuramitsu was watching him. Hasegawa tells her that he is the final specimen that they were trying to create, and now they only need to bring Kuro the Red Castle to get what they both want. He also gets a vision of Kuramitsu lying in front of him, and he is hunched over her. On the other side, Hasegawa takes some of Kuro's blood and reveals Rai, who is immobilized as well. He tells him to think about what would happen if he injected his blood into Rai, and he mentions that he wants to recreate a novel called Dracula using his blood. He reveals that his aim is to find out if Kuro's powers can be transferred by injecting another person with his blood, and Kuro tells him not to do anything to Rai because she is not involved in anything. Hasegawa comments that it is even better that she is not involved in anything, but it makes her an even better of a guinea pig. Outside, the lookalike starts walking away from Kuon, thinking that he will die on his own now after bleeding out, but Kuon gets back up again, which shocks him. Inside, Hasegawa almost injects Rai with Kuro's blood, but he manages to break the shackles holding him down, and he punches Hasegawa away from Rai. The blood injection breaks after hitting the ground, and outside, Kuon kills the lookalike along with the soldiers that came with him. Inside, Hasegawa puts his hand into a machine which injects a mysterious liquid into him, and he declares that he will make Kuro regret touching him with his filthy hands. The mysterious liquid starts transforming his body, and he turns into a huge monster. He jumps up and does a Spider-Man pose before shooting a purple liquid that comes out of his forearm. The liquid hits Kuro in the eyes, and he starts screaming in pain, so Hasegawa explains that it is an advanced neurotoxin that was extracted from an animal that lives in the Amazon. He declares that Kuro will not be able to recover from it so easily, and he asks them if they know the words of a random ancient literary master who said that life is meaningless if death is meaningless. He continues to yap randomly about how he will surpass everything by becoming someone who can control both life and death, and he stabs Kuro's throat after saying that he needs Kuro's head to achieve his goals. He takes out the blade stuck in his throat, and Kuro falls down to the ground while Hasegawa tells him that his current body is at its limit. Rin secretly communicates with Kuro using his earpiece, and she tells him that Hasegawa is standing right behind him. He picks up the broken injection from the ground, and he swings it behind him as soon as Rin tells him that Hasegawa is within his range now. He stabs the injection into Hasegawa's stomach before rolling away from him, but Hasegawa takes out the injection like it was nothing. Kuro continues to spill blood everywhere, and he manages to kick Hasegawa again thanks to Rin's directions. He dodges him twice before kicking him away despite being blinded, and Hasegawa falls towards Rin's blind spot. Blood continues to spill from Kuro's throat, and he falls down to his knees as his strength keeps disappearing. Rin tells him to be careful because she cannot see Hasegawa from where she is, and he suddenly appears at her feet. He realizes that Rin is the one who is helping Kuro attack him, and he breaks the shackles holding her down. She tries to run away as fast as possible and she grabs the wires on the roof, but she loses her grip strength. She falls down into a pit and Hasegawa manages to get a hold of her. He pierces her limbs first using the spikes that came out of his body, and he lets her go before piecing her once again. Kuro breaks a pole to help himself up to where they are, and he sees Hasegawa kicking her over and over again while her limbs are pinned to the ground due to his spikes. He declares that he will become a god by giving birth to a superior life form by attaching Kuro's head with Kyuan's body, and stomps her chest while telling her that it is her punishment for interfering with his dream. He prepares to kill her, but Kuro manages to stab him in the throat after hearing where his voice was coming from. He swings the pole and throws Hasegawa to the wall, who comments about how it is very ironic because he was also aiming for her neck. He falls down the pit in the middle of the room and Kuro hugs the severely injured Rai while questioning his own identity. He starts getting different visions about his head getting cut off and Kuramitsu, and he wonders if he is getting fooled by her or someone else. He thinks about how he keeps getting a weird feeling the closer he gets to her, and that he needs to meet her to resolve this whole mystery. He picks Rai up and starts heading forward. They get on an elevator and Rai barely gathers enough strength to touch his face when she gets shot right in the middle of her head by Kyuan. She dies instantly and he puts her down. Kyuan starts walking towards him while shooting at all the windows for no reason, and he even does a spinning shot to make it more dramatic. He continues to be dramatic, breaking windows while being a ballerina, and he even passes by Kuro. He finally stops when he reaches Rai and he suddenly kicks her off of the building, which shocks Kuro too. Kyuan gets down on one knee and starts yapping about how he has been listening to Kuramitsu's orders just to meet her. He turns towards Kuro and says that they are the only ones left now. He unsheathes his sword and starts staring at it creepily before suddenly rushing towards Kuro. He swings his sword at him and Kuro manages to block it, but he starts being extremely offensive. Kuro manages to block his attacks, but Kyuan slowly gets the upper hand. Kuro rolls on the ground to dodge his attacks and they exchange multiple blows until Kyuan suddenly stops. He starts talking about how Hasegawa created him so he could give his body to Kuro, and he goes crazy while questioning why he was not good enough to accompany Kuramitsu on her journey to who knows where. He complains about how she does not love him and his hand starts trembling. His sword gets surrounded by a red aura and he attacks Kuro once again. Kuro manages to barely avoid getting hit, but the floor gets damaged by Kyuan's attack. He continues to attack and Kuro barely evades every single strike to save his life as Kyuan keeps wreaking havoc using his new buff. The large elevator starts malfunctioning due to the damage and it starts moving towards the upper floor. Kyuan attacks again and says that his life would not have been so miserable if Kuro did not exist. They push each other towards the window while fighting and Kuro blocks his sword, but Kyuan continues to exert his strength while talking about how he will never forgive Kuro. The sword reaches Kuro's neck, which starts bleeding as Kuro fails to push him back and he tries to slash his neck, but Kuro manages to avoid it. Kyuan notices his pistol on the ground, so he quickly picks it up and Kuro tries to attack him before he can do anything, but he stops when Kyuan points the pistol at his head. They enter a standoff for no reason and Kyuan laughs because he thinks that he has won, but the elevator reaches the top of the building before colliding with the roof. They both get blown away and the table turns on Kyuan as Kuro grabs his hand to prevent him from falling to his death. He asks Kuro to tell him if the Kuramitsu he saw before was an illusion and explains that she had 3 moles on her ribs. He looks up and starts laughing when he sees the look of despair on Kuro's face, which makes him realize that he saw the real Kuramitsu. Kuro suddenly lets go of his hand and Kyuan falls to his death. Kuro sheathes his sword and starts walking forward until he reaches the final room. He enters the main room where the Red Emperor is singing in his ugly voice and a guard blocks him. He tells the guard to move, and when the guard doesn't budge, he informs him that he has known swordsmanship before he was even born. After such a useless flex, another guard rushes along the wall and beats the drum, which distracts Kuro momentarily. The guard attacks Kuro, but Kuro easily blocks his attack and then proceeds to take them down one by one. He slices through the guards and kills all of them, after which he comes face to face with the Red Emperor. The Red Emperor readies himself and their fight begins as Kuro lunges at him. The Red Emperor blocks his attack and they are both equally strong as they attack one another and block each other's attacks. Kuro feels a surge of power and he lunges at the Red Emperor. He manages to stab his face, which breaks the Emperor's mask, and suddenly the whole building starts to shake. It slowly starts to crumble and rivers of blood appear underneath the building. Everything starts to become drowned in blood and the blood overflows all the bodies as well. Kuro notices a room, so he slowly walks towards it while everything falls behind him in pools of blood. He enters the room and suddenly finds himself looking at a hut. He walks towards it as he starts to think that he has seen the hut many years ago. He finally recalls that it's the same hut where everything began thousands of years ago when he decided to peek inside Kuromitsu's room and found her inside. He enters the hut and walks over to her room once again. He then peeks inside and sees a priest introducing himself to Kuromitsu. The priest is actually Benkei, his old loyal servant who tells Kuromitsu that he has found her after 1,000 years, and he confesses to her that he has been looking for her since he decapitated his master Yoshitsune Kuro and drenched himself in his blood. Kuromitsu asks him why he is doing everything, so he tells her that he was madly in love with her but he couldn't abandon his feelings. Back then he saw the both of them falling in love with each other, but he couldn't throw away his feelings, due to which he started to desire Kuro's death so that he could claim Kuromitsu and clap her cheeks. He finally gave in to his feelings, and soon a certain group approached him who wanted to acquire the secret to immortal life. They cursed him and then commanded him to decapitate his master, after which he attacked Kuro and tried to kill him. He then drank his blood, due to which he gained an essence of immortality, but he wasn't truly immortal because he had only managed to drink Kuro's blood when it was still merging with Kuromitsu's blood at that stage. He tells Kuromitsu that he continues to age as time passes by and that he is decaying in a very ugly way. He soon became fascinated with the way of life, due to which he told Hasegawa to help Kuromitsu since he was well familiar with technology. He also reveals that he knew her plan was to replace Kuro's head with Kuon's body all along, and he calls her a fearsome woman. He then confesses his feeling that he has thought about her every single day for the last 1,000 years and that he loves her with all his wrinkled, dusty old heart. They both notice Kuro standing at the door and Kuromitsu asks him how much he has heard, so Kuro reveals that he has heard everything. He tells Benkei that he had forgotten all about any grudge against him, but now they need to settle a score. Later they both approach one another to have their duel, and Benkei imagines how he will strike Kuro down, which makes him smile. In one flash, Benkei lunges at him and Kuro strikes him down with his sword. Kuromitsu declares that things have ended, and Kuro tells her that he still feels nervous and that his body feels heavy. She explains to him that he is not fully complete because his body cannot keep up with his healing abilities, and then tells him not to worry as she hugs him. She tells him to endure for a bit longer and then cuts his neck off with a blade as she explains that she has prepared the perfect body for him. All the memories rush through his brain and he wakes up to find that his head is being embraced by her. He realizes that the same cycle of his life has repeated countless times, but he only remembers it when his head is cut off, and he asks Kuromitsu whether it is still not enough. He begs her to let him die, and she asks him why he is whining so much when he has finally returned safely to her side. She starts whining on her own that she is suffering from immortality and youth, due to which she does not want him to leave her alone. She declares that everything will start again once he wakes up and that she can remain immortal because he keeps pursuing her in every single life. She is sure that he will find her again, and she reminds him that they have to go to the end of the time together. He gradually loses consciousness and wakes up after some time in a forest. He wonders where he is and when he even fell asleep. He starts to wander through the forest as he thinks about where Kuromitsu has gone, and he crosses the forest to come across a fully developed city, which surprises him. Later, some forces chase after him as he runs through the city, and the whole cycle begins again. He runs away from them on a bike and a hover chases him. He recalls Kuromitsu's words that they are both bound together by an unbreakable bond, and he jumps in the midst of some soldiers, so he starts taking them down one by one. The soldiers keep coming at him and Kuro wakes up to find Benkei standing in front of him. Benkei reminds him that their enemies are still pursuing him, and he notices that Kuro seems out of it, so he asks him what's wrong. Kuro feels nostalgic as he thinks that the time is repeating itself, and Benkei thinks that Kuro is just tired, due to which they need to find a shelter in the forest. They both head deep inside the forest to look for a place to stay. Will Kuro continue to suffer again and again, or will he be able to escape Kuromitsu's trap once and for all? Comment your thoughts below and make sure to like and subscribe the channel for more anime recaps.